Good morning. We're here for our regular scheduled county commissioner meeting. It is February 26th. It is 9 o'clock. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask everybody to please rise and join in the pledge. All right. So at this time, I'll look for the adoption of the current agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the of the agenda as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for the approval of the agenda. At this time, I would like to bring up the fact that we had 3 consent items and it's down to 1 now. And one of them I thought was a timely item, and it's not. But the agenda, once it's set, if we're going to alter the agenda, we need to do it before the meeting. Once the agenda was set, and we have lost 2 items off the consent agenda, which I thought were important and should not have been removed. So at this time, we'll look for a vote of approval on the agenda as presented with 1 item on the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Moves down to approval of the minutes from February 19th. Any additions, corrections?
No corrections.
Okay, so consent on that. Approval of warrants and payroll registers.
We have 2 this morning. Fund expenditures. Move for approval of fund expenditures in a total amount of $1,348,635.30 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
Made a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 We have another fund expenditures. Move for approval of fund expenditures in a total amount of $18,110.85. And note that it has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
Made a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Takes us down to public comment. Is there anybody in the room for public comment?
Good morning, Michelle Andrews. I do want to thank you for making that note about the agenda. It's been noticeable for the last couple months, really, that the agenda gets changed a lot, and it's very difficult for we, the people, to figure out what's going on and to be able to address these things when they're moved and changed a lot. Now, there may be reason that I don't understand, and I'd be diplomatic to offer that up. But it's really important that when the agenda is set, that we know what's going on before we get here so that we can work with you and bring our contributions to you. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else for public comment? Anybody on the phone? Moves us down to the consent agenda. 1 item. Look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of consent agenda item 1 as presented. Approval of the Comprehensive Jail Commissary Fund and rescinding of Resolution 77-57.
Second.
Been a motion and a second for Resolution 2025-081 on the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
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 Takes us down to regular business, presentation certificates of appreciation. would like to start with a certificate of appreciation for Mr. Eric Johnson. Mr. Johnson, on behalf of Franklin County, we'd like to extend our heartfelt appreciation for your generosity and sharing your time, knowledge, and experience with us. Your assistance has been invaluable in helping the county fulfill such an important role. Your contributions have played a critical part in ensuring that Franklin County has continued to operate smoothly, and we are deeply grateful for your positive impact you have made. Please accept this certificate of appreciation as a token of our respect and admiration of your professionalism and commitment. We want you to know how much we value your time and how sincerely we appreciate the hard work you have dedicated to supporting county's continued success. Thank you so much. Commissioners.
Thank you.
Commissioners. Yeah.
I can't expand much more on what was already read, because it has been an honor and a privilege to work with you, and you have showed us the way. It's been absolutely wonderful having you here. And we thank you for all your hard work and dedication.
Thank you, sir. It's been a honor and a pleasure to work with you. Appreciate your insight, expertise, and institutional knowledge on county government. And having barely had the opportunity to know you shortly before you came here, my experience has been here, and it's been really good. And so I appreciate that, and appreciate the handoff that's taken place, and look forward to Brian taking your role, and you will be missed. So thank you very much.
And I'd just like to reiterate all that, and it's been a pleasure working with you. Professional. We'd also like to extend, well, let me deliver this one first, Mr. Johnson. Next, Shirley Jones. On behalf of Franklin County and the County Administration Office, we'd like to extend our heartfelt gratitude for your now invaluable time, support, and dedication over the past 6 months. Your expertise, willingness to step in and assist you provided have been instrumental in ensuring a smooth and efficient operation of the office. Your contribution has played a critical role in maintaining and daily functions of the County Administration Office, and we are truly appreciative of the positive impact you've made. Please accept this certificate of appreciation as a token of our respect and admiration for your professionalism and commitment. We want you to know how much we value you as a colleague, and how deeply we appreciate the hard work you've put into supporting the county's success. Ms. Jones. Commissioners. Commissioners, you got anything you say for Ms. Jones?
Just want to say thank you for all your hard work. Appreciate it. You've always been there to answer any questions I've ever had and help guide me. So thank you.
Thank you. Always being willing to help with a smile. It's always very, very appreciated. Thank you very much.
Next, Mr. Erdman. Dear Mr. Erdman, on behalf of Franklin County and the County Administration's Office, we'd like to extend our heartfelt appreciation for your generosity in sharing your employee Shirley Jones with us. Her assistance has been invaluable in helping the county with such important roles. Shirley's contributions have played a vital part in ensuring the daily operations of the county administration office runs smoothly, and we are truly grateful for the positive impact she has made. We also extend our thanks for the leadership in overseeing the Planning and Building Department over the past 4 months, while we have had a vacancy in our director position. Please accept this appreciation as a token of our respect and admiration for your professionalism and commitment. We want you to know how much we value your partnership and how deeply we appreciate the hard work you've put in supporting the county's continued success. And I'd just like to say thank you, Craig, for everything that you've done in helping oversee planning and building, county roads, You're a man of many hats, so thank you. And our last is Lisa Eckhard.
Yes.
9 years of service to Franklin County. On behalf of Franklin County, we would like to express our gratitude for your faithful service with the Franklin County Information Services Department starting March 13th, 2000 through September 30th, 2024. Your contributions to the county and your years of service have been invaluable. Please accept this certificate of appreciation for your dedication and professionalism. We hope you know just how much we respect you and have valued you as a colleague. You will be missed in Franklin County. Lisa?
I'll accept it on her behalf. She's out of town, and I'd just like to say she's been an extremely valuable coworker and employee and has made a lot of contributions to Public Works in the county, and she's going to be greatly missed by our department.
Thank you to both you and her. For the public, I want to share just a snapshot of our county engineer and public works director and a lot of different hats that he wears. He's had an unconventional path to being an engineer, not the typical path, and I have a unique admiration for somebody that takes the road less traveled. So Craig, thank you so much for your service to Franklin County.
Yes, thank you, Craig, for the guy that wears multiple hats. You've always stepped up.
I'd like
And
to say
do-
I wore them well, but I can't. Sure.
I would say you wore them well. Thank you.
Hopefully you kept them all on yesterday with that gusty windy day we had. All right, we'll move down to the second item on regular business, prosecuting attorney salary structure and creation of 2 positions presented by Jeff Briggs.
You guys are in for a treat. I have a PowerPoint, so. Guess while we're getting that ready. Ready here. Sorry, I could have plugged that in. I has to do that for me. I would also like to thank Eric and the entire board for working with us on this. It's been a pleasure working with you all. Margot in Human Resources, Mackenzie as well in my office, and my boss, of course, who I'm obligated to thank. No, he did help a lot. Actually, Sean really got the ball rolling on this, so I would like to thank him as well. And I think, it's a nice segue thanking Eric as well specifically, because I think one thing that Eric has shown us is that if we set differences aside and collaborate on things and use rational thought and look at things factually and sort of attack problems with facts and rational thought, that we can actually achieve great things as a county. And so I think, that's a perfect segue using sort of Eric's reasoning and using that to take a look at this problem. I'm going to grab the point. This is it. Okay, so here's a recap of our discussions. I know we all know what happened. So clear back in December 18 of last year, we were sort of using incentives as a stopgap, and at that time, Sean had indicated that a comprehensive proposal was forthcoming. In the month of January, we were in meetings with Margot as well as Mr. Johnson. Back in February 11th, we had a closed session followed by a workshop with the board. And then last week we proposed a resolution, but I think the board needed some more time to look at that. So here we are today with that same resolution. I would point out with the resolution, I provided an updated draft to Teresa. There were a couple typos in that, just pointing out what those were. sorry, there's a line in there that says DPA 5 would be 5% over DPA 5. That should be 5% over DPA 4. And then I stuttered in the resolution. I think on the second, be it further resolved, I said the. So I think we would remove one of the thes. But putting all that aside, that resolution is substantially in that same form. So what is the problem? Why are we not seeing prosecutors? We know I sent an article recently to the board sort of highlighting what the problem is. It was articled in the Bar Journal, but I kind of have my own take on it as well that I'll get into. But I mean, sort of in a nutshell, prosecutors are leaving and crime is not, right? Crime is increasing. I think probably the per capita rate's roughly flat, but our population is growing. We're the fastest growing county, I believe, in the entire state. So crime is on the rise. And Washington criminal law, thanks to our friends in Olympia, is increasingly favoring the accused. We see multiple examples of that with pursuit laws, sentencing reform, giving softer penalties to criminals. Juvenile laws constantly been favoring juveniles more, and it's really sending a message to criminals that it's okay to commit crimes, right? We've also seen that obviously with drug possession being substantially decriminalized, and we've seen how that experiment has worked in Oregon as well. In our exit interviews with prosecutors who have left, we've seen that almost all of them have cited pay as among the primary reasons why they've left, primarily with the senior level attorneys. There have been one attorney that's retired and one that moved across the country, but substantially the attorneys that have left have cited pay. We've also seen that in the Consor study that indicated that other like neighboring jurisdictions, Benton, Grant, and Yakima, all their chief deputies receive much higher pay than Franklin. We don't really want to get into exactly what those numbers are because we run into problems with antitrust types of laws. We can't, do like a Price is Right thing and beat them by $1, so to speak. So those studies like Consor are useful because they sort of sanitize the figures for us. But anyway, they're doing better than we are in terms of pay. And I would say that our proposal, while it doesn't exceed what they're making in those other jurisdictions, it brings us closer to what they're making. So our attorney pay, and why is that? Why is their pay better than ours? Well, our attorney pay is structured a little differently right now. We're still sort of in an antiquated structure where it's tied to COLA increases for all non-BARGs. And this has worked, I think, for us for decades, but other jurisdictions, sensing that there was a more urgent need for prosecutors, have sort of singled them out for pay increases that were higher than their, county co-workers. And so that's why we're seeing this sort of gap between prosecutors in neighboring jurisdictions versus Franklin County. Oh, I forgot, I was going to do a disclaimer at the beginning. Obviously, myself, I would stand to benefit from the pay increases. I just wanted to put that out there at the outset. So that was why initially, I think at the workshop, I didn't say much of anything. And I wanted to sort of, because I want the board to know that when I'm giving the board advice that I want to remain as impartial as possible in any advice that I give the board. And so it's tough for me to give advice like this because in future instances where I give the board advice, I don't want them thinking, gosh, is he doing this for some self-interested reason? So I just want to put it out there so the board knows, to take that with a grain of salt. But this is something that I find is very important. It's important for my office because right now we're down, I think, 42%, and I mean, things could get worse for us. And that's in our criminal deputy department.
And also, I'd just like to add for that, it's kind of an awkward situation for Jeff, but really, Jeff, I asked him to be put in a situation to kind of carry on the working with Margot and Eric during the month of January. As Jeff mentioned, back in December 18, that's when we had an opportunity to utilize some remaining ARPA funds and transfer that over. I was in the process of, I had recently been added on to a very challenging and complicated 3 co-defendant murder trial, and so I was in the process of preparing for that, and that basically took up all of my January, as that case just resolved on February 7th. So basically, I wanted to thank Jeff because we did tell the board that we were going to be forthcoming in the weeks following that December 8th, 18th meeting. And so frankly, Jeff had to pitch hit for me because I was tied up with that trial. So that's really why he's in the position of gathering the information, working with Margot and Eric to try to put this together. So I didn't want to take his thunder away and be the one presenting this because he did the work on putting this together, and we've worked on this for the past few weeks. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
So I don't know if the board had a chance to read the Bar Journal's sort of hypothesis as to why they believe that attorneys aren't becoming prosecutors. I think it's more of a structural reason that people just aren't going to law school generally. The bar seems to think that it's because of this, after George Floyd happened, it's not cool to be a prosecutor anymore, but I refuse to think that, what I do isn't cool. I think it's one of the coolest things you could do. So I think they're just flat out wrong. I mean, my kids tell me I'm cool every day. So, but I think, being an attorney is challenging in and of itself. A third of law students fail, and that's by design. The American Bar Association is required to be accredited. It has to follow a bell curve distribution. So if you get A's and are killing it in law school, that means other students are getting F's or D's. And you have to get at least, I think, a C average to graduate. So a third of students fail right out of the gate out of law school. Of the 2/3 that graduate, a third of them don't pass the bar. And regardless of whether you fail or pass or don't pass the bar, most students are going to have student loan debt unless you come from a wealthy family. So balancing all that in hindsight, even if you graduate and do well, a lot of people probably would tell their kids or their family, maybe I wouldn't have done it. Maybe I would have done it differently. Maybe I would have went to a trade school. Maybe I wouldn't have became an attorney because it's so dang expensive, because the student loan debt is so out of control. So I think that's, for some reason, the bar didn't even address that, but I thought that was a point worth making. So our pay scale, we're actually very competitive at entry-level attorneys. So I kind of feel like the other jurisdictions are kind of laughing at us because we train their future senior-level attorneys and then they swoop in and take them away. We end up training prosecutors who are currently practicing in Grant County, currently in Benton County, and doing really well. And those are very important roles because those senior or chief criminal deputies, those are the ones that are trying the complex murder, rape, child abuse cases. Those are the ones that create the cohesion in the office. They're the ones that mentor the younger attorneys. And that continuity in cases can lead to efficient justice, is a word I made up. Attorneys like to make up words and phrases. But I think what I'm getting at there is when you get turnover in your department, you start handing it off to another prosecutor. Another prosecutor has to review the entire case file, like Sean just described, having to go through an entire murder case that another prosecutor had that was outgoing that Sean inherited. That's a heck of a lot of work, and it's being duplicated. And by doing that, it's not efficient for us, and and it also creates delays for the victims of crime. And it also can create scenarios where, the outcome isn't what we would have wanted. And I had to give a shout out, of course, to civil chiefs also, because that's what I do. But I guess we're kind of important too. But I think really the focus here should be on criminal chiefs, because that's where our need is. That's where our numbers are down. Criminal chiefs and senior deputies. But obviously senior and chief civil deputies, we handle the complex civil cases. We also, we can save thousands in outside legal expenses by avoiding those types of legal disputes. I'm also the claims administrator and the risk manager. I know other counties will actually have those in separate roles. So Benton County, their risk manager is a full-time position. So that's just one that I absorb. We're kind of like the cool uncle, you know. We offer legal advice, but you don't have to follow it, right? We're not going to be a barrier to action. You can come talk to us. We can, tell you what we think about it, but you don't have to follow our advice. You don't even have to ask us for our advice, and you can take action, right? We're an advisor, but we're not a barrier. We're the oil that keeps the machine going. We provide legal support to every other department and all the elected offices. So we're kind of important too, but I mean, really, the need here and the impetus for this request is the urgent need in our criminal department. So the current proposal is to put chief pay more commensurate with the neighboring jurisdictions. I've already talked about that. Creating interim positions. So we have a 4 and a 5, and I think Sean's talking about we probably wouldn't fill those initially, maybe not even until through 2026, because our proposal is to make this budget neutral at least through then, perhaps further. And these would not take effect until July. Part of that is so that this would be budget neutral. Okay, and I also encourage you all, you can visit with us, obviously not as a quorum, not as, two of you, but individually you could meet with me anytime. Maureen as well. Maureen is in a trial upstairs, or she would be down. She actually gave me a statement to read. But you can just see what we do. Come down, meet with us, come, watch us work, and yeah, I think you would be impressed with what you saw. And we're just looking for highly motivated people, and we want to recruit and retain good attorneys and help them protect our community, but we need your help. It reminds me, I was kind of thinking of an appropriate analogy, and it reminds me of my time in the Army. We would do what's called pre-combat inspections. So before you go out on any mission, a pre-combat inspection is where you check and inspect your equipment and your personnel. And the objective there is to make sure that you have the right personnel and equipment for your mission. If you don't go out on that mission. And right now, I feel like we don't have the right personnel on the criminal side to complete our mission. And so we're asking the board, for help, assistance, so that we can get that right personnel in place to complete our mission. So.
And if I could add, Commissioners, just a little bit to that. One of the questions that was asked of us would be, hey, in order to try to assist keeping this a budget neutral, it would be budget neutral for 2025. The question is looking at 2026. And I think, as Eric had discussed previously, is that if we had every single one of these positions filled where it is now, there would be a budget impact for 26. But unfortunately, where we are with anticipatory hires, and again, one of the purposes of making this effective July 1 of this year, we still anticipate that with the hiring we're still trying to look for a couple of our entry-level positions, but we're trying to fill those that also have experience. We have an individual that is looking at coming in mid-April, knowing that we are in discussions for trying to change this to recognize the importance of having and keeping and retaining those that are in that kind of senior level of experience. As Jeff indicated, Maureen Astley, my only current chief criminal deputy, she does probably the majority of the trials that we have in the county. Some of those are very complex. She handles everything from the homicide case. We have a couple cold homicide cases. We have a couple no-body homicide cases. These are very complex cases, and I know in talking with her, she recognizes the weight and pressure on her being now the only criminal chief. And that's what we're really trying to do, is make sure not only can we recruit qualified applicants, but retain those that have gained the experience within our office. Like me, Maureen gained her experience through district court. That's our gross misdemeanors, misdemeanor type cases. She started in our office there, got jury trial experience, and worked up to felony. And that was essentially when I took office, and recognized her talents and skill set for that. And so, anyway, it's extremely important because we've had to make adjustments. I've shared this with the board. The last thing I ever want to do is change accountability pieces on what we can do within the office. That has required us to put more felony cases into district court to be handled as gross misdemeanors. It's caused us to put a pause on handling essentially property crimes. Those get delayed, and unfortunately, sometimes those are the most type of cases where I get called and people are frustrated because, hey, what are you doing about this? And we've had to just say, look, I can't take 50% of a loss of our criminal deputies and simply dump that workload onto the remaining deputies. That's just not feasible. It doesn't work, and it would drive others to leave. And so we're really hoping that because we've tried to work this out to where we anticipate this would be relatively net neutral. I know oftentimes the board has made decisions where other departmental changes are made, and the real question is only for that current fiscal year. We've tried to address looking at the following fiscal year, because I recognize that this would be a difference over 26. And considering the fact that we're looking at this, and one of the proposals that we would make is we've had an outstanding vacancy for our senior deputy position, and one of the questions posed of us would be, would you keep that position vacant if we can make this adjustment so we could at least fill the other vacancies and retain the key positions that you have? And we were certainly willing to consider that. I would much rather be at about a 86, 87% of capacity rather than what we will be next week when we lose another deputy. That's going to drop us down to 53% shortage in our criminal division. So I'm trying to do, and I think I've implemented everything that I possibly can to try to utilize district court so at least we have some level of accountability. But unfortunately, with losing yet another deputy, that's causing us to have to make further changes, and that's going to cause delays in bringing these cases that I know are important to our citizens. And that's why we want to have this discussion so that we could recognize what we're proposing. It's going to be a net neutral budget impact for 25. In fact, we're still going to be under because of the fact that these won't even take effect until July, and we don't anticipate being able to fill these positions until later in the year. Maureen traveled to Boise. I traveled to Moscow, Idaho to meet with students, soon to be graduates from the University of Idaho College of Law, to try to recruit those that are coming and looking at working with us. And that's why we have a pretty competitive, as Jeff said, on the entry level, we offer a pre-competitive Rule 9 program, which means graduates from law school or those that have completed their second year of law school and they're able to practice under a limited license under the supervision of a licensed attorney. We're trying to get them to work in our office, recognize the type of work that we do. We had one candidate a few years ago that participated in that Rule 9 process. He was kind of going the corporate law route. He worked in our office for a summer after his second year, and he ultimately changed trajectory and enjoyed doing criminal law. Now he's a city attorney prosecuting cases in Utah. But that's the thing that we're looking at is, hey, hopefully we could keep them here in our area. That's our goal. Even if people do decide to move on to a different location within the state, we hope that they would at least stay with prosecutors. I look at this as hopefully I could help my other prosecutors, because we do recognize sometimes people do have family in other areas of the state, so they may start here as a stepping stone. But what we have seen is people have stayed until recently, where the pay disparities between other areas have caused people to look at even going into different things, switching over, doing OPD work, and other matters. But we believe that the proposal would be a competitive edge, and like Jeff said, it's not going to exceed those necessarily around, but it's going to be close enough that we think that this would be addressing more of a longer-term solution. We do have with creation of what has been proposed to the board. The two new positions to kind of address those that have that extra experience of the Deputy 4 and Deputy 5 position. We've equated the Deputy 5 position to the equivalent of like an assistant chief. So that would be just available for like a one slot, and then probably 2 or 3 slots at some point in time with the DPA 4 position. Again, we're trying to look at and evaluate that for making sure that this budget is relatively budget neutral, depending on the timing of filling of these vacancies. But we're really hoping that the board would consider that, because I think even though we're still going to be short personnel in the office, because we've told the board that we would keep one of those positions unfilled in order to try to make this as budget neutral as possible. But again, what Eric had mentioned previously, obviously if every single position filled at the higher levels, or depending on what the steps were, that would cause an impact. And that's why we would offset that impact by unfilling one of those senior DPA positions. So anyway, I just wanted to thank the board for the time, and I know the board has worked with us. Thank you, Eric. Sad to see you leave as well. I think you've been a great asset, not just for this project, but all the many projects that the board has put with you, and the work that you've done for the county. So again, thank you for your efforts there, and thank you to Margot, who's helped work with us on this. Any questions for the board?
Commissioners, questions?
What do you think the fiscal impact will be on 2026?
26, like I said, depending on the timing of when we could fill these positions, this doesn't take effect till July. The two positions, we've made offers to soon-to-be graduates, and so if they come on, they come on as a Rule 9, which is even below our DPA schedule. That's at the $69,000 annual salary. They would start with our office, but they'd also be taking some time off for bar preparation. They wouldn't even move to the entry-level DPA position until they pass the bar, which would be sometime later in September. So based upon that, when I say a net neutral on the budget, that would consider what we're paying in 2025 in that carryover, similar to kind of what we did in 24 with some of the vacant positions. But if we're looking at the cost for 2025 and 2026, considering the vacancies that we currently have in the 25 budget, rolling that into 26, we anticipate that unless we had some unforeseen filling of senior level positions, we wouldn't be impacting our budget, I don't think, because we're going to continue to keep a senior DPA position unfilled in 26. So I really anticipate it is going to be closer to a budget neutral. But as Eric Johnson had said earlier, if we had filled, and that's why we wanted to have that discussion, if we had filled, it would be, I think it was discussed as approximately $200,000. And that's why keeping that senior DPA unfilled, it would mitigate that. And again, that would mitigate only if all those positions were filled in the next month. And we do not anticipate that.
So Commissioner, I think, let me take another stab at that. So if you hold a position open, and all the positions are filled by 2026, I think the salary and benefit line for the prosecutor's office will be about $100,000 greater. Forget about the carry forward or anything else, but if you were to hold a position open, make these changes, you would see about $100,000 in additional salary and benefit expenditure in 2026. What Prosecutor Sant is indicating, this concept of carry forward, is they clearly are not going to expend all of their salary and benefit line item in 2025. They're not even going to come close with the number of vacancies that they have. In fact, I was trying to look down at prosecutors really quickly. The variance in salaries and benefits is going to be significant. So they're going to have an unspent amount of money that is actually going to carry forward into then the county fund balance into 2026. So can you equate that and simply say, well, that's a savings in 2025 in the prosecutor's office, and we're going to give that to them in 2026, and it would be revenue neutral? Be something the board could think about. However, just in the pure additional cost to the county in 2026 will likely be, an additional $100,000. And then the question about what it would be on an ongoing basis, you could generally say, well, it's going to be cost of living adjustment plus. So it'll be $103,000, then it'll be $106,000. We don't know what the cost of benefits would be. That could add an additional amount to that as well. The interesting thing about benefits, though, is you're paying benefits on one less FTE if you keep that one FTE open as well. So.
Any other questions?
I do have a statement here from our chief criminal deputy, if I could read that.
Please.
So this is from Maureen Astley, our chief criminal deputy. Commissioners Didier, Mullen, and Bauman, thank you for allowing me to give my thoughts regarding the proposed salary scale adjustment for the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office. Major thanks go to Eric Johnson, our interim county administrator, Chief Civil Deputy Jeff Briggs, and Human Resources Director Margot Wilder for working hard on this important issue. I wish I could be there to present this statement myself, but I'm currently in a felony criminal trial upstairs in courtroom 2. To those of you that don't know me, my name is Maureen Astley, and I'm the Chief Criminal Deputy Prosecuting Attorney. To give you some brief insight about me, I am the first and only lawyer in my family. Both of my parents were educators. I've been a prosecutor for 16 years, all of which I've proudly served here in Franklin County. My caseload most commonly focuses on sexual assaults, including against children, and violent crimes against persons up to and including aggravated first-degree murder. I am often the first or last attorney at the office, sometimes both, and I work very, very hard to do my job efficiently, equitably, and to the best of my ability. Opponents have described me as tough but fair. I have tried 94 cases so far, 73 of those to Franklin County juries. This one I'm in right now will be number 74. A member of the public watched one and wrote me a letter afterwards thanking me for giving such an excellent view of the legal system at work. A young lawyer I mentored thanked me for investing the time to make him a better lawyer. The best compliment I can get from a police detective is, "I am so glad you were assigned this case," and I hear that often. When they need legal advice at 4 a.m., I'm the person they call. I hope your decision on this matter allows me to continue to answer the literal and figurative call. Our office stands at a precipice, and if the adjusted salary schedule is approved, the future looks bright. I don't have to tell you that the criminal legal system on both sides is in crisis. On the front page of this month's Bar News, the cover story is "Help Wanted: Why a Hiring and Retention Watershed Moment Among Prosecutor Offices Has Many Raising the Alarm." Aside from the attorney shortage, harmful legislative changes out of Olympia threaten the very fabric of our communities. If left unchecked, crime can and will spin out of control. We are a nation of law and order. I've devoted my entire career to upholding the laws of the state of Washington. I have fought for crime victims in court, walked with them through the worst, most traumatic times in their lives, and again see the triumph of the human spirit as good can and does prevail over evil. I want to keep doing that. I want to keep working here. I want to continue to mentor young attorneys and continue serving the public. But I also, with a decade and a half of proven battle-tested experience, deserve to be paid what I'm worth and the massive value I bring to the county and our community at large. That's the real benefit to this proposal, allowing us to attract and retain attorneys who can handle the most violent, most complex, and most emotionally taxing cases. At the bottom end of our salary scale, we're competitive. At the top, we're nowhere close. I make about $30,000 a year less than the chief criminal DPA in Benton County. I haven't left because I love my job and I love where I work and who I work with. The crime victims in Franklin County deserve a chief like me. This county will lose me and others if your clear message is that you do not care to fund our prosecutor's office. The ripple effect on the most serious crimes, violent felonies, rapes, murders, and shootings will be immense. Put plainly, this should be a no-brainer when our office has agreed not to fill a position. We have a very highly qualified applicant for our criminal chief position. They are waiting on the outcome of this decision. To have another experienced prosecutor with decades of experience leading our office is imperative. I can't continue to do this all by myself. It's not sustainable. We need help, and instead of retention incentives and Band-Aids, you have the ability to stop the bleeding and ensure our office stays strong both now and into the future. I have watched many intelligent and talented prosecutors leave our office, most for financial reasons alone. Of the deputies in our office, only 3 of us have been here longer than 2 years. The consequences of turnover are that cases have to be reassigned to other prosecutors, causing more delays as cases languish in the court system. Justice being delayed or not realized is unacceptable. Not doing everything in our power to retain experienced attorneys to handle the toughest crimes is unacceptable. To be forced to divert or not prosecute criminal cases because we're not fully staffed is unacceptable. No matter what changes are made in Olympia to further soften our laws, we need to send a message to criminals that it's not open season here in Franklin County. That if you break the law here, we will do everything we can to hold you accountable. I sincerely hope that you pass this much-needed proposal, that after my trial, I can personally shake each of your hands and thank you for doing the right thing. There's a lot of work for our prosecutor's office to do. I sincerely hope you make the right choice and that allows our dedicated people to continue doing our hard work.
And I would like to add, we have had some relief from some of our local elected officials that in Olympia have put bills forward to get some funding to assist us with like the Rule 9 program. These are the attorneys that are going to be soon graduates from law school. That will further offset our budget impact as well, because there is a stipend built into that would help with their housing located, as well as they do compensate a little bit of it. It won't be a full 100% coverage of those positions at the grade 17, but it certainly offsets. So that we also anticipate, if we are able to get the 2 individuals that are 3Ls soon to be graduating and they end up staying with our office, that would give us a further lessening on the budget impact for 25. And like Eric did point out, we are looking at this from an impact, I think, going down the road. Sometimes that isn't asked of offices to forecast the 26 impact or even the 27. We are really hoping that we can fill some of these positions by at least the end of 25. And again, because they're coming in, a lot of those positions are going to be at the lower end of the step scale. That will have further salary lessening of effect for the 26 budget when you compare the 2 budgets side by side. So anyway, I just want to thank you again for your time.
Well, I understand that the difficulty is in recruiting new attorneys, and I do believe that Franklin County should be known as the county that you do not want to commit a crime, because we do prosecute. So I've had several calls, about the positions, but our prosecutor's office and attorneys is a higher skill set. I mean, it really is, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration, because you can't compare apples to apples when you have other jobs in the courthouse that don't require the work and effort that goes into achieving your law license. So I do appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
I'd just like to thank the attorney that wrote that as well.
Maureen Astley.
That was really well done. I appreciate her efforts and her dedicatedness to this county. I would like to ask that any department that is coming in this direction should give us the financial impact of the year that it'll happen in, and at least 3 years in front of that, with, projected 3% COLAs or whatever the COLA increase we are doing every year. That way we know exactly where you're at. The last thing is I don't want to promise not to fill the position. I want the position eliminated. The Deputy 2 position. Eliminated. That way we know it won't be filled. Because we don't have uncertain times in front of us. We don't know. We have a new administration. Everything's looking good right now. But this country is underwater, big time. And how are we going to get out of it? I don't know. But I don't want to get us down the road here into a position we can't afford to pay attorneys, and then we got to start laying them off. The main thing is to have positions filled. You've said it yourself. As much as we prosecute in this county, the penalties aren't being applied. There's no deterrent for these criminals. And when there's not a deterrent, then they feel free to commit crime anyway. This will probably ensue more requests from our county. I mean, I know that you're a special breed. You're lawyers. It takes a long time to get to there. But we're all human beings, and everybody's going to want to come in and start readjusting their department. So this has got some big weight. I would like to see us take our time on this. I don't feel comfortable passing this today. Commissioner Bauman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Several things that you and Commissioner Mullen said that I would like to kind of reiterate a little bit. This is not a comparable position to a lot of the other positions that are in this in the county, the government. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into it, and it isn't the same. And so that part I do appreciate. The part that the chair shared that I think that certainly has made it difficult for me. I think we need a more complete picture. Oftentimes I feel like that I have a single puzzle piece in front of me, and I'm trying to guess at what the picture is and where it goes in that picture, and that makes it really difficult. I asked that this be pulled from the agenda last week, and the earlier reference 2 items that I asked that be pulled from the agenda today, from the consent agenda, is because I feel like I don't have a complete picture. And so I certainly appreciate the letter and the statement that your colleague, that you read from your colleague, and what you shared. That really helps with the bigger picture. And there's certainly 2 components of this. There's the pay and there's the environment. And I think that it's helpful. You helped a lot today with that bigger picture. And so now this puzzle piece that you're asking about, that we have in front of us today, now I have a clearer picture of where that fits into the puzzle. And so I don't know if that's a proper, description of what it is, but the items that were on the agenda, or I don't believe they made it to the published agenda, so I don't believe they were ever officially a part of our agenda, but I didn't feel like that I had time. So I went to the auditor's office yesterday and was asking questions and trying to understand where in the puzzle does this piece belong. And so thank you, Mr. Chair.
And if I could just briefly respond to that, we are going to be 53% down in a very critical and core function of our county work, and that's really what we're trying to address. Because even if the board passes this today, we recognize the fiscal impact will not really take effect for months, because this has been a long effort trying to do the recruitment, trying to retain. What we just can't afford to lose anybody that we currently have on staff. And so we're really asking the board to consider that, recognizing that I think our impact is going to be very minimal, even into 26. And Commissioner Didier, when we say we wouldn't fill that, if that's what it takes to pull that, as I said, I would much rather be 86% from full capacity than 53% deficit of positions. And I would challenge anybody in any department to be able to accomplish their core mission with a 53% deficit in that department. It can't be done. I can't beat around the bush any longer. It's going to have a significant impact. And I've told this board, we have done significant things over the years because we have not increased, we haven't expanded our office at a time when we have seen record growth. And I think it's important when we talk about crime rates, what happens is it gets viewed as somehow, oh, our crime rate is not increasing. That's because we have law-abiding people that are locating to Franklin County because frankly, I think it's the better of our area counties to live. And that's what is important. And as we have law-abiding citizens move to our area, even though the crime numbers go up, your crime rate will either stay flat or potentially even decreases. But the workload is increasing. As we've mentioned before, the increase with Axon, the electronic evidence that prosecutors have to review on every case. Every time officers show up at a case, there's body-worn camera view that has to be viewed and considered as part of our charging decision and review of the case going to trial. So we have done so over the years without a change of manpower to the office, and we're getting to that point now with this kind of deficit. We just can't do our jobs. And that's why we're asking the board to at least assist us to try to stop this bleeding and be able to at least get us to a point where we could reassess in a couple years, and hopefully at that point in time, we could see where we are and try to request that position back. If not for another one, because there is a need for it, and we're having to be smarter on how we hold criminals accountable with limited resources. And that's utilizing supervision that we get in district court, but that's going to put additional impacts on district court as well. And so again, I think Eric mentioned it very well a few weeks ago, that the criminal justice system is really complex. It's not just any one component. We are just simply, to use your example, Mr. Baumann, the puzzle piece. We are a puzzle piece in that bigger picture. There's an impact for the caseloads that go to the court, the need for services for corrections, the need for services in the clerks. We recognize that that's a huge impact, but I think we are the only office that currently is at a 53% deficit, at least as of next week. So anyway, I'd ask the board to consider that with that caveat that we would pull that DPA 2 position then, so it would no longer show up. I would just simply ask that for budget purposes, we reflect that, so that way it isn't lost when we come back to the board and we show the impacts. We still could address that issue by, hey, by unfilling this, this is really the savings or the impact that our office has taken to make this work. So.
Well, let me give you a worst-case scenario, and we pass this, and we're 3-4 months down the road, and you can't find people to fill the positions. Are we going to come back and try and raise the salaries again? Sooner or later, we got to sort of address the elephant in the room, and that's leadership. I know that you've been gone a lot the last couple of years. I don't, just saying that, you know, maybe people are not leaving because of financial. Maybe it is because of the leadership. Have we addressed that? Have we looked at ourselves and did an analysis on that?
We've absolutely addressed the leadership. And if you're trying to suggest somehow that my service in the Army Reserve is somehow detracted that, I haven't been absent of the office. I haven't taken vacations like others have. I'm probably in the office more than I would probably say any other official here. And if you're challenging the leadership, when we talk about looking at exit interviews, it is pay and salary. It's not a leadership issue. It's not a lack of upward mobility or upward movement, a lack of opportunities.
Right.
We have
If I could chime in on that, I give a recent example of Josh Cuevas, right? He went over to Benton County, and I asked him, you know, why go over there? You could do the same thing here. He was the OPD, you know, the interim director at one point, and he flat out told me, he said, Benton County, they fund their criminal justice system better over there. He's like, I want to work in a system that's better funded on both sides, criminal and defense. And so, I mean, it didn't seem to be anything related to leadership. I guess at that point, though, he was working as the interim OPD director, but he had worked in our office. And I think, I mean, he had left our office primarily for money. In his first year, I think he had left to go work on an OPD contract, and they had offered him, gosh, it was like,
Actually, he moved to Franklin County OPD at a 36% increase.
Yeah.
He moved
It's a
basically.
huge increase.
From the DPA 2 line from a step 1 when he had just recently been licensed, and they basically, because of the need at the time, they moved him all the way to step 6, I believe. 36% increase.
But it's kind of a recurring story that we hear. Everyone, I mean, Daniel's another example, and you can talk to them. I mean, they're not shy about, they'll tell you. I mean, it's money. I mean, you work hard, and it kind of goes back to my slide about all the time and effort you put into being an attorney. It's hard work. I mean, we all have families, and we care tremendously about what we do, but at the end of the day, you go home to your families, and, you know, that good feeling you have inside about what you do, you know, only goes so far. And I think at some point, you do want to be compensated adequately for what you do. And at some point, there's an amount of money, I guess, that makes it not worth it anymore. And you say, well, you know, maybe I could be a defense attorney and join the other side, I guess, you know, because the money's so much more. So they, you know, that's what I've been seeing anyway. And I've talked to everyone who's left.
Well, I think we're at a critical point, and public safety is our main concern. And I strongly believe that we support law enforcement and the prosecutor's office to prosecute anybody that breaks the law in Franklin County. And we should be known as the county that prosecutes. So I don't think we can kick the can down the road any longer. So we need to make a decision. And I support the recruitment because I realize how hard it is to recruit new attorneys at this point in time. And if we have to lay people off eventually, I don't think it will come from the prosecutor's office. It would have to come from somewhere else because it should be our number one priority. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Bauman?
you had indicated that you potentially could support this if that Deputy Prosecuting Attorney 2 position was eliminated.
Yes.
And so I would be prepared to make a motion for the resolution before us today with an adjustment to the resolution to eliminate that position.
Is there any further discussion before a motion is made?
No.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of Resolution 2025-074 as presented, with an exception of, in line 3, the line reads, "One vacant DPA 2 position shall remain open if necessary to ensure that these effective changes are budget neutral through 26. The adjustment that I would make is to eliminate the currently vacant DPA 2 position, to eliminate that position in the PA's office, and if necessary in the future to be readdressed.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for Resolution 2025-074 with the adjustment of elimination of Deputy Prosecuting Position 2 to be readdressed in the future if needed. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Commissioner.
Resolution 2025-078, budget transfer of $250,000 from Fund 111, Distress County Public Facilities to 405. Mr. Anderson.
Well, in this, if slightly different from Jeff, if I do say the on this, it's not a stuttering, but a fact that I believe the official name of the HAPO Center is the HAPO Center, and so I might say the HAPO Center. I do that in emails and stuff sometimes in regards to this. It's similar to our previous name of the track, and people would say the track center, which the full name was Trade Recreation Agricultural Center. So if you add center on, you're doing center. So this is Pretty basic, just a budget transfer. There's no cash movement from the Economic Development Fund to the HAPO Center, $250,000. They probably don't need quite that much budget. It's probably closer to 150,000, I think, but I'm just trying to make sure we don't have to go through this again later in the year. This is for the 2024 budget. I don't even know if oh yeah, I do address 2024 on there. But yeah, so this is for the 2024 budget, $250,000. It's not moving any of the economic development cash. There's no movement of money or anything like that. It's entirely just a budget, just so that HAPO can spend on their remaining bills. There has been a lack of projects. There hasn't been anything spent in the Economic Development Fund for 2024. And so this just moves that budget, $250,000. And that's pretty much all I have.
I'll just add one thing. I think this is a good indication because it's an independent fund, there's a cash flow issue right now. We will be having the opportunity soon to bill the county and the city to make our cash transfer in. It's really a cash flow issue for us right now in being able to utilize available cash in the Distressed County Public Facilities Fund as we manage that cash flow.
And so then it'll be replenished by both the county and the city as it is being depleted?
There will be a reconciliation done at year end to address fund balance at year end.
And it'll be done by both the city of Pasco and Franklin County?
Yes.
Questions, commissioners?
Do you have the resolution in front of you? Okay, never mind. I see the question that I had, so never mind. Thank you.
So if there is no more discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve Resolution 2025-078 as presented.
Second.
Been a motion, a second, to approve Resolution 2025-078. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Moves us down to Resolution 2025-082, Brian Danzel's appointment to the interim county administrator job by Eric Johnson.
Thank you. Obviously, sitting next to me is Brian Danzel, and for those of you that do not know, Brian Danzel, former county commissioner in Ferry County for a couple of different stints, a former state senator, has been managed organizations at the federal USDA level, as well as a former golf pro. Are you still? No, that's a past profession. So anyway, it comes with great qualifications and great capabilities to hold this position. The agreement will be virtually identical to the one that you had with me, with a different address on it and a different person, but otherwise it holds forward and carries forward the same scope of duties and same compensation level as well.
Questions?
It does expire, starts today, and does expire May 31st. And so not knowing how long our recruitment will ultimately take, we would anticipate somewhere in the month of May a permanent hire being authorized by the board. That authorization probably will happen in April. When and how much notice that person would have would depend. So.
No questions, just happy that you have interest in the position, and you come with a very good background, so I feel very comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And I welcome you, and I thank you for filling in a void until we can hire an administrator. I really appreciate it, so thank you. So with that, if there's no more discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve Resolution 2025-082 as presented.
Second.
Been a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2025-082. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Welcome, Brian.
Welcome.
Look forward to working with you. Moves us down to Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Johnson.
Great, thank you. I am going to just do a couple of things. We can pass these down just to highlight some of the transitional items that Brian and I have been chatting about in things that are items that I have been paying a lot of attention to, will be kind of in the horizon in the next couple of months. Obviously, and I'm not going to go into any details about these. This is really for your reference. Certainly the HAPO Center, the HAPO Center, did Tim leave? Dang, I was going to use it. So a lot of things happening within that context that are there noted, both on the operational side, the agreement side, the capital improvements, the master plan, the future agreement with City of Pasco. There's just a series of items that are going to continue to need attention in the short term, as well as some longer piece. Public records, we've made some measurable progress within our public records sector. We still need the final hiring of a permanent PRO. You heard, I think, a little bit, I think, from Mr. Briggs a couple of meetings ago, might even been last meeting, about the need for some redaction log and some automation, some opportunities there. We still have to do some JLARC reporting, so there's still some additional elements to continue to follow up on that. I'm going to talk about budget management and monitoring here in just a bit, but as you kind of go through from the jail issues to the Title 17 updates, the courthouse, there's a lot of different elements. The Office of Public Defense, we've not made a permanent hire for the replacement of that position. You're in the midst of that fleet management transition, so being able to monitor that and working with Craig and Public Works through that process. Obviously, the county administrator recruitment that Margot will largely manage in conjunction with the outside firm GMP. The emergency communication system, we do need a long-term funding solution for that. It's kind of $1 million a year decision for the next number of years, so a lot of things happening within that framework. The overall salary matrix, you've talked about that in a workshop session with the need for a comeback on that. Margot has a whole bunch of workshops planned for you on health benefits and making future decisions around the health benefits. We've addressed the prosecuting attorney matrix for now, so that's on. Property management ordinance, Jeff and I will be briefing you on that here in a while. The .09 Rural Economic Development Fund Coordination and Spending Plan, we need to come back to address that. We had a great workshop and a bi-county meeting yesterday that you probably all will talk about, so I'll leave that, but really about the behavioral health funds and expenditure plan for that going forward. You heard a little bit about the need to update our human services interlocal agreement with Benton County as well. So a lot happening in the next several months. And so, Brian and I had a chance to talk about kind of these elements that he'll be working with you on, department heads on, independent elected officials on, et cetera. So a lot, you can tell, that's going on. So I really appreciate Brian coming on with experience to help you kind of work with those. The one last item I'll just close with, or one last item off of this, is the budget management. So the Finance Committee met last week, I think it was last Tuesday if I recall, and one of the things we talked about during the end of the budget process in December of 2024 was to perhaps look at some monitoring metrics and to bring you those types of things. And so one of the concepts is after each monthly Finance Committee meeting, we'll come to you with a report on some of those metrics, the things that we really need to be paying attention to. So, for example, what's happening with local retail sales and use tax? How are we doing on revenue projection? Because as you know, our expenditure plan is based off of hitting those targets, particularly in a couple of major areas. Local retail sales and use tax is one of those. Interest income is another one of those. So, for example, in 2024, we were almost 1.9 million over in the projection. The first, basically, the first month in 2025, we were $55,000 under. So again, monitoring these types of things and bringing those in front of the board on a kind of a monthly basis, and to make sure the community, the public, the departments, the directors, everyone's much more cognizant, and it just isn't that closed finance committee with just a small group of folks. For folks that are not aware, the finance committee is a legally constructed RCW requirement that includes the treasurer, the auditor, and the chair of the board. And so it's a group that really looks at what's happening on both the revenue side as well as the expenditure side. One item that we set forth is that we need about $660,000 of that is going to be necessary for the departments and the offices to come up with to pay for the cost of living adjustments that are being granted. A lot of people are really concerned about that. But in the first month, we had $192,000 in savings in the first month in salaries and benefits, underspending in salaries and benefits. So collectively, we shouldn't have any difficulty reaching that $660,000. The difficulty might be there may be some offices, particularly small offices, that, a small office that has 4 people and no one leaves during that year, that's a lot harder than a large office that has a lot of transition, et cetera. So good news. So those are the types of metrics that we really are talking about bringing to you so you can see and track some of those important pieces. Monitoring sales tax, again, also goes into the criminal justice sales tax, because it's $4.5 million. So if we start to see a decline in sales tax, then we will really have to monitor. And it's unfair a little bit because there's a sales tax lag. So the sales tax we're actually getting, in this month were probably those that were collected back in November. So just things to be thinking about in relationship to that. And then the group will also talk about the what ifs, So, okay, what if we're starting to see a revenue decline or an over expenditure, how do we bring to the board the thinking around what do we do? What's some of the options and alternatives? So I just wanted to give you a snapshot of that. So be expecting that'll be something Brian, Tim, and probably Russ or Josie will come and bring information associated with both the revenue and expenditure kind of after the finance committee meeting. So just wanted to share with that. And last thing is I just do want to thank you. I have thoroughly enjoyed being back in a county. And that's a wonderful staff. I think the Franklin County staff is just is great. You as a board, the independent elected officials, there's just a tremendous sense of dedication to the citizens of Franklin County, and I'm thrilled to be here. I'm going to miss it. I've told you all that if I was a different point in life and career, I probably would be a candidate for the permanent position, but I'm not in that stage of my life anymore. So as I told Commissioner Mullen, a week from now I'll be sitting on a beach in Hawaii. So, yeah. So,
Rub it in.
Yeah, I am. So thank you.
All righty. Well, I'd like to introduce Mr. Brian Danzel. Would you like to say anything about your brief time here now? It's just a few minutes.
Well, Mr. Commissioner and to the other commissioners and everybody, it's been really neat to be here, and everybody's been so welcoming. I guess the thing that I would say is I feel that this is a really neat opportunity because I got to know Eric Johnson when I very first got elected. I think I was 25 years old. And now to be able to come back, the one common that I found through all the departments that I've had the good fortune of meeting with is they really like this guy. And they really like the accessibility, the openness, the ability to have maybe difficult conversations, but having them face to face. And while I don't think there's any way possible that I could fill his shoes, I'm going to try my very best to replicate the efforts. And I want to thank you for setting such a gold standard for how to operate. So looking forward to it and thankful for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Danzel. Commissioner Baumann?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Spent a part of 3 days last week over in Olympia with WASAC and met with many of our legislators, and they kind of WASAC, we kind of broke up in different groups of commissioners, and one of the kind of the group that I was met with as a group of us commissioners that we then went and I guess you would say lobbied our legislators, but more shared our concern was the impacts of some of these green energy projects are having or are going to have on counties with things staying the current way they are. And recently I seen in the paper that there is a solar farm planned for up in the Connell area. And so the concern with this is with the tax base of the county only being able to raise at 1% per year plus new construction. Kind of one of the things that happens is you take this new construction value and you raise your base taxes by that number, and then a little ways down the road, these organizations have shown that they are transferring those assets from a property to a personal, and then they are what's the word I'm looking for?
Depreciated out.
They're depreciating them out.
Yep.
And it's therefore transferring that tax burden onto the remainder of the tax base in the county. And so that's something that's of a big concern for counties across the state. Our county hasn't been affected in that particular piece as much as some others have, but it gives us an opportunity to contemplate it as we address some of this coming on. So appreciate all the legislators that met with us. I don't know, it had to be over a dozen that we met with, and had the Franklin County Cattlemen's banquet this last Saturday, and that's just enjoyable to see fellow cattlemen and women from around the county, and really always enjoy that. Bi-county board meeting yesterday, and one of the things that I got out of that I think that we need to address, and we ask our counterparts across the river to work on that with us, is the Columbia Valley Center for Recovery that is very well underway, and the remodel is our mental health tax that is being collected. There's going to have to be a portion of that is allocated for payment of the operations of that facility. And so having an understanding of what that is and how it's going to work is something that we need to address sooner rather than later, even though it's not open yet. So that's one. Tomorrow morning, wanted to remind my fellow commissioners and others that the Columbia Valley Center for Recovery, there's the Recovery Coalition that is advocating for and working diligently to be a part of that, is having their annual breakfast tomorrow morning at the Hapo Center. And so hope to see a lot of people there. I was told that it was sold out, so that's good to hear that there's so much support surrounding that. And that's my report.
Commissioner Mullen?
Okay. So this morning had the Visit Tri-Cities, excuse me, meeting. And that's a great resource for the Tri-Cities because they bring a lot of extra activities and sporting events into our area. This last year, they brought in the Ironman competition, which added about $7 million to our local economy. And it was voted by the contestants as the second best swim of any of the competitions they have nationwide. Hotel revenue is up about 7%. One of the questions they had also, Visit Tri-Cities goes and testifies on different bills that come up, and while we did have 24% of our visitors staying in vacation rentals, there's a bill out there now wanting to know if we want to tax short-term rentals. And me personally, I'm against it. I think we have enough tax burden upon all of our citizens. I understand that it might create a little bit of revenue, but I think that revenue would be offset by the time it takes to implement such a program. I'm a strong believer that the government doesn't make things better. If they stay out of the private sector, I think it benefits everybody. Whenever you raise taxes, it just raises the price of everything else. People complain about the high cost of housing. Well, when you raise property taxes, rent goes up. It's a pretty simple equation. Airport is up 9%, almost 500,000 travelers last year, so that's good news. I guess they're also going to add, Delta's adding a 4th flight out of Pasco. So had last week, also had the Board of Health meeting, had a lot of public comment on there, and there were some comments made on the vaccine presentation. And with the vaccine, we're just saying it's not mandatory. You want to get vaccinated, you go right on ahead and do that, but don't force it on anyone else. Good roads of Washington, and I'm sorry, good roads of Benton, Franklin County, Walla Walla last week. Again, also had the bi-county meeting with my fellow commissioners on the recovery center, and also attended the Cattlemen's Association. That's a great benefit for our youth in this area. There's a lot of great scholarships and activities for our youth, so it's a good program. Like I said, Visit Tri-Cities has a hardworking staff, and we need to utilize that staffing to help promote the Tri-Cities and help promote our area. So good job to everybody at Visit Tri-Cities. Appreciate all your hard work. And that concludes my
Thank you, Commissioner
updates.
Mullen. So, yes, Board of Health last week, we just had passed our resolution advising the citizens of Franklin County to be well informed before they were to take the vaccine. Everybody thinks that we banned it from Franklin County. No, we're not acting like the governor and what they did. No, we're letting the people have their free will of choice. All we're saying is get the information before you get the vax, because there has been a lot of harmful effects, and vaccines of the past, if they had 10 problems, they took it off the market. They've had well over thousands of problems, and this one's still out there. Ben Franklin Council of Governments, where I brought up to the council, I've had 2 press operators get a hold of me, Whitby Ag and Number 9. They both are complaining because China is in our country buying presses and pressing hay. Now, if you don't know what pressing hay is, we bale hay. We bale hay to where it can sweat out the moisture. After it's sweated out the moisture, then they can take these bales of hay and they can compress them to a smaller size so they get more weight onto the containers, which go onto the ship. And therefore, you're shipping more product. You're condensing the size. These presses are setting up shop here in America. They're buying the American hay, and they're also bringing in hay from Mexico and selling it as American hay. They're running our presses out of business. I brought it up to the Council of Governments, and I had some feedback from other people on it about the fact that, yeah, they're in here buying our farmland too. So hopefully we can bring this up to President Trump. We've got a direct line now with him, with Mr. Danzel. He's worked in his first administration. Maybe we can get him to reach out and help us on that part of it. Bi-county meeting, great meeting. I think it's very important that we continue to get together with Benton County, probably once a quarter, because we have so many things going on with them. I think it's only good for the public to be able to be informed, and it shows transparency in our local government. The COVID vaccine was great presentation by those doctors. I just did a podcast yesterday with Dr. Thorpe from Florida. He's setting up some books, autographed books, and I'm going to give one to each one of you, and he's asking for donations because he's helping out the victims. All the money will go to the people that have been harmed by the COVID vax. We have good news. We have Cowlitz County, Chelan County, Grant County is going to get a presentation. I talked to Benton County yesterday. They want to get a presentation. We have other counties that it's growing. And this is the way the people take back control of their government, is that we have to be engaged and we have to be willing to fight for our freedom. Again, I want to ask about the AG's office. As of June, it'll be 2 years, and we still do not have a reply on the unconstitutional pay that was granted in Franklin County. And if we don't address it here, it's going to be widespread across the state. We need to get either a statement back from the AG's office, or we move ahead without them, because all they're going to do is just give us their opinion. And I think we should move ahead. This is something that can never happen again, is the commissioners have voted themselves a pay increase by taking benefits in the form of salary. The last item on my is to proposition my other commissioners that I think now is the opportunity to challenge the sanctuary state of Washington State. Franklin County is being harmed by this status of being a sanctuary state. We've been declared a sanctuary area, and I, for one, don't believe we are. I think that we need to get other counties, just like we are with the COVID vaccine, and we need to rise up and challenge this sanctuary status, that we do not want this sanctuary status. We have a problem with crime. We're having an increase in crime, and we want to control our own county. And we want to be able to say, no, we're not a sanctuary county, and if you come in here as an illegal, you will be arrested. I think that's something that we should address and start the charge on that in Eastern Washington. Hopefully get more counties to join us and challenge this. As Ferguson is attacking Trump, we need to start attacking Ferguson on the policies we don't agree with here in the state, and that's one of them. I think first and foremost, I think we could probably get a lot of traction out of this with the other counties joining us. Thoughts?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd love to, if you guys are willing, to ask the sheriff to come talk to us maybe next week in a workshop setting and just discuss that. I had gotten, quite a few people had reached out to me about us being, being said that we were a sanctuary state, and so it's been a little while back, but I visited with the sheriff about it, and that we are not. We are not a sanctuary county, and so if my fellow commissioners are okay with that, and the sheriff is willing next week in a workshop setting, I'd love to kind of hear a little bit of perspective on what would that mean, and what would the consequences of that be, and is it helpful? So, yeah.
If I could interject something on this, Commissioner. So I think the challenging part of all this is we have a law, it's called Keep Washington Working.
Okay.
And there's a statute in there that talks about the duties of the sheriff specifically. And so it's part of an organized effort, I think, from Olympia to sort of dictate what the sheriff can and can't do, and it's getting more and more. I mean, there's more proposals coming in terms of I think they want to dictate what the qualifications are for the sheriff through the CJTC. But putting all that aside, this Keep Washington Working is saying the sheriff can't enforce federal law. So from a civil perspective, that's challenging, because if they're saying the sheriff can't enforce federal law, well, if the sheriff does enforce immigration law, now arguably he's outside the course and scope of his duty, so now he's going to get personally sued. We'd probably indemnify him anyway, so the county's on the hook for it. And I think we've seen something similar happening in Grant County, right? There was a lawsuit, I think, with someone who was
Adams County.
Adams County, there you go.
Yeah, so, sure, I can do that, and I can explain all that to you, but you really brought the nail right to the head of it, is Disability Rights Washington. And our legislators created a law that says this is the law that the sheriff can and can't do. And it's a law, and the way you change it is by changing the law through your legislators, and it's a long process. Just so everybody knows, I've been in law enforcement for 43 years now and never enforced any federal law, and nor do I have the authority to enforce federal law. The sheriff's office isn't involved in ICE raids or any of those type of things. The only thing that remotely impacts us is I cannot hold federal inmates in a local jail facility without a magistrate's signature. And that's where the arguments start with the whole ICE thing, because they keep they try to bring in administrative orders that are signed by an agent that says, hold this person, and that's not lawful and it's not legal, and it actually wasn't lawful and legal before disability rights Washington laws that we're implementing. So we never have, we're not going to in the future unless laws change. And someone empowers the local sheriff, elected sheriff, to enforce federal laws. And that's never going to happen, just so you know, it's just not. The Klickitat County Sheriff is pretty boisterous about this. All I will say is Klickitat Sheriff's Office is wrong with reaching out and saying, you know, you can come, we'll help you do raids and arrest illegal immigrants, because he's wrong. You can't do that. So, yes, I can, I will. I'll try to break it down to you a little bit more than this discussion right here, but there is a lot of moving parts in it. But we have to change the law before local law enforcement can do anything.
And they can check your jail roster, which is open to any member of the public, and determine, you know, who's housed in your jail, and then they can cross-reference that and pull triple I's and figure out, you know, whether someone is there, you know, if there's undocumented people housed in your facility, sort of on their own. So they really wouldn't need. The problem would arise if you were pulling someone. The triple I is the federal background check that law enforcement has access to. If the sheriff was pulling that and then going to immigration and saying, we have these folks, there could be some issues there under that, because our state legislature has made it abundantly clear you're not supposed to do that.
And our state legislator, nor I have control of criminal databases. Actually, those are controlled by Homeland Security and the feds.
Right.
So yeah. So all of our inmates that are sitting on our jail are posted every day on the internet.
That's a good point.
That's where everybody gets their resources.
So with those federal databases, we can access that for official purposes. So we shouldn't be pulling that just to, you know, to coordinate with immigration. We should be doing it for our own, typically to see if someone has an out-of-state warrant or things of that nature. We use it for all sorts of purposes.
Correct.
And I'll just add that I'm not asking the sheriff to do anything here. I'm asking the commissioners. And if we want to just stand by and let him keep compounding these laws on top of one another, we'll face the consequences. I think as commissioners, we need to challenge this law. And that's what my whole premise is that we challenge the fact that we are not recognizing this sanctuary status that you've put out there, that we want our citizens of Franklin County to feel safe and secure, and then also let the federal government know. We don't agree with our governor. We don't agree with our legislature. Yes, we've got to change the laws, but how do you change the law? You stand up against it, and you make a stand and a statement, and hopefully you get some people to join you. I know who will be joining us, and that's Saunders, sheriff from Klickitat. He'll be joining us. Some other counties will be joining us, and that's how we create this momentum to change laws.
Actually, you need to approach your legislators and your representatives and make them change the law for you.
Well, there's far more on the west side, and I don't think we will mingle well with them.
Well, that's how it changes.
Well, what I'm saying is we'll create a stir, and then we'll get it, maybe the ball rolling that way. So,
Well, just so everybody,
just a
just so
thought.
everybody understands, Sheriff Raymond is not going to obstruct federal law enforcement officers.
thank you.
Okay? We will assist them when it's necessary to protect our community. And we've done that in the past. And we are in contact with our, what you all like to refer to as ICE agents, which are actually more than just ICE agents. There's the FBI and an umbrella of federal law enforcement under Homeland Security. And we work with them. We're on task forces with them and everything else. And through experience, I just know that when someone gets bound up criminally and they're an illegal, I know where they're going when it's all said and done, and none of us going to stop any of that. So,
That's right.
Yep.
So we'll have Teresa work with your office to identify whether in general business or workshop for the presentation time then for next Wednesday.
Okay.
Great, thank you. I would just say there's two other ways to change laws. The first is also a citizens initiative process. In our state, we do have a citizens initiative process.
Hopefully that stays.
Yes, well, there'll be a constitutional challenge, I'm sure, if they try and, go beyond what the Constitution says of what a citizens initiative. And similarly, the courts have an impact. I suspect if the sheriff's office, if the sheriff's association believes that any laws are infringing on their constitutional duties at the state constitutional level, they would challenge those as well. So
And what was the second way?
that was the
Initiative process?
initiative in the courts. The courts
Gotcha.
can rule laws are unconstitutional,
There
and
you go.
they do.
Okay, the last thing I'd like to announce is, and I went over already with Mr. Erdman, is I got this from Zach Kennedy, who used to report to us. We had hired them. He says, "I hope you are doing well. I am sure this email comes to somewhat of a surprise since Pott and Associates no longer represents Franklin County. However, I am working on House Bill 1647, establishing surface mine reclamation permit fees for my other counties, and I want to make sure that it was on your radar. The current bill will have substantial unforeseen negative impacts on Franklin County. Surface mine reclamation bill will increase fees for gravel pits in rural counties, and there's a possibility that it may in fact include current exempt subtract stockpile areas as well. House Bill 1647 has a hearing tomorrow in House Appropriations at 1:30, and I'm coordinating with Alex Swanson of Wasack for testimony, Eric's former colleague. We are looking for commissioners who are interested in testifying the bill to share your concerns, and if you're interested in testifying, please contact Alex. So I've reached out to Craig already, and maybe we can put together a statement by the commissioners, because we have pits all over this Franklin County, and we need them. And if they're going to start increasing fees and putting a heavy hammer down on them, we've got to try to protect our interests. So just wanted to make everybody aware of that. And that's the end of my presentation. Open it up for public comment. Anybody for public comment?
Thank you, Commissioner Didier. I just wanted to welcome Administrator, even if it's temporary, Brian Danzel. He is a good man. My husband, Mike, wanted me to tell you hello. Welcome to the land of wind and tumbleweeds. And as you've met many people in our county, great people of humility and integrity and hard work. And I also wanted to, again, thank Commissioner Didier. Without his work, we would have never had the presentation in December or the presentation last week by these doctors and scientists, and it really did make a difference. I was at an event this weekend, and it was all a buzz. And you're right, he's created some momentum, and it's really a good thing. And Commissioner Didier has been working on this for a while, and I appreciate the other commissioners for voting for it, but it was Commissioner Didier that did the hard work, and I know you're humble about that, but I really want to tell you thank you. That's what leadership is, and we really do appreciate it. So, and Mr. Johnson, we are going to miss you. You know, when you're a good person, not what people say in the public, but what is behind closed doors. And I've heard such good things from both Commissioner Mullen and Commissioner Didier about you, and I really do appreciate everything that you've done for our county. So thank you.
So Commissioners, John Rosenau, County Assessor. I'd like to address a couple of things. One of them, Commissioner Didier, on the mining one, that certainly will have an impact, even assessments and so forth, and I actually already submitted con to that as an individual. So I encourage people to definitely get in there with legislatures and get your con posted and testimony if you can. Commissioner Bauman, you brought up the green energy, solar, wind farms, and so forth. That is something I'm on the state legislative committee for the state assessors. It is strongly will impact the east side of the state, much more so than the west side by far. We are working very strongly with the people that have written it. We're having meetings with them, Rommel and some of the different ones that we've had several meetings with. We think that the verbiage is going to get changed. That is something that will not have that kind of an impact. Right now, the impact of Franklin County would be minimal. It really would, because we're a much larger county. But the counties like Garfield and Columbia and some of those that have massive wind, solar things that are going to be going in and already are in, to raise the tax base up, budgets up because of new construction, and then all of a sudden put them on a depreciation schedule that walks away down to a minimum of 15% after a period of time, and the budgets still say high. So the local cities and counties and so forth don't have to use all that money, but it's going to get banked, and at some point in time, if the legislative body changes in those places, they could use that money, and it'll hit those residents instantly. So I can tell you that the county assessors have been, as a state, have been a little neutral. Our legislative committee has been very concerned about it. We've been given the authority to speak to the people on that, and the initial reports we got, we're making some headway to be able to get some of that changed. So I just wanted to share that.
And just, for the public and the folks that are, property tax is complicated. So I wish there was a graphic to show the impact of this, is that when a renewable energy project comes in, it generally comes in as personal property, not real estate. And so we get this bump, and so we can collect 101% plus new construction in property tax. So all of a sudden we collect 101% plus all this new construction. That sets our new collection amount.
New base.
New base.
Yep.
And what happens is all folks in the county with real property will continue, and personal property will pay the rate. Well, so what happens then is the depreciation of all of those renewable energy projects goes like this. They slowly pay less and less property tax, and it is then transferred to the remaining property tax base, which are primarily other businesses and homeowners.
Correct.
And so what we have been identifying this as a major problem as more and more renewables are coming in, that the property tax shift is occurring to you and I, rather than that individual renewable energy. And so that's what is
Right.
trying to be fixed in all of this. And it's going to be a significant problem.
It would be, especially for the smaller counties.
Particularly in smaller counties. And
It would make a
counties.
minor, even the Connell program would make a minor change and shift in our county over the period of years. Not that we want to see any, but in the smaller counties that have massive dollars where those taxpayers are huge, and then all of a sudden they diminish down to 15%, and it's laid out on all the other taxpayers of the county. It's massive. So I can tell you, I'm opposed to it. The way that it's being presented, we're working very, very hard in the back to try to prevent that, along with several other bills that we've been working on.
Yeah, and there's states have approached it differently. There's some states that you basically, each wind turbine simply pays a stamp, they call it a stamp fee. And so it pays that forever. Whatever that, if so long as it's operating, it pays an annual fee, and it's not a necessary property tax. Or there's different methodologies
Right.
that the other states have utilized that are more equitable.
Right. And instead of having each county trying to assess the value of those, we're trying to get it would be a state one, because no one county has experts, especially smaller ones. We don't have experts on that. We'd have to rely on something. And even Spokane County, as large as they are on the east side, they've admitted they don't have experts to be able to assess and appraise that kind of project. So we're working on that as well. So I just thought I'd share that with you since the topic was brought up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
It's a good meeting, a lot going on. Welcome, Brian. We've heard a lot about you through the election cycle, and we're very happy to have you here. I'm very happy to see that you guys already know each other. It just feels like it fits, so thank you. I also really enjoy that Wes McCart is here. I've worked with him on Council of Governments and for the Snake River Dams, which I still think are paramount to our energy solutions. There's a lot of turbines that aren't working. The Baumgartner is working on that, so I would ask you to bridge that with him and with Mr. Binky, and especially with Senator Risch of Idaho. I've worked with all of them. I was actually living in Boise for a long time, have vacationed in the Sun Valley area where these tributaries are for these fish, and there's a lot of really good work that can be done right now for that. I also want to continue to put the gas turbines before this county and other counties to fund, because you can still build them until 2045, and a gas turbine produces an incredible amount of energy, very comparable to a turbine in a dam. So I would definitely work that in. If we're going to have these kind of issues with windmills and green energy, we need to have an answer. And I know everybody's waiting for the nuclear reactors, but that's an 8 to 10 year process to clear the regulatory commission. I do want to compliment all the things that our commissioners have been working on. You are working very hard. I did also appreciate the vaccine initiative, and I do have a working First Amendment petition regarding the constitutionality of illegal aliens in our states, because the state's on the hook. And one of the bills that we came across this week was if you had a library card, you could say that you could have unemployment insurance if you intend to become a resident in Washington State. There's a process. There's a green card and then a gray card. And we actually have a gentleman in our area that went through that personally himself, and I will talk to him. I won't mention his name here, but you should hear that process, because that's the process. And this includes a very high level accountability to the highest level. And I would like to bring that forward. I've been working on it for a while, and I would agree that many other counties can jump on board with that, because the Constitution, whether we're in the minority or the majority, is the balancer. And we're constitutionally illiterate in many cases. We're getting pieces, we're getting parts, but the counties are the parent, the state is the child. We tell them what we need, and they do it. Just like we, the county, come to you with things that are needed, and our commissioners do what we ask to do. Now, one last point. Is a beautiful presentation to Shirley and to Mr. Erdman that worked very hard, and I appreciate that. However, I have studied the VEBA thing, and I'm not sure that's a winning deal, because I sold health insurance. And I know that you're uncomfortable right now, Commissioner Didier. I'm not sure it's cost effective, but we elected Sean as our prosecutor. He works for us. You work for us, the sheriff works for us in different capacities. I did not care for the comments, taking a slight at his leadership. That's almost a double negative, because that's not the kind of leadership that the people want. I really do work very hard, and I appreciate so much of what you do. But when you tear at that fabric of trust and you offend the people that have elected other officials, it hurts. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Nobody on the phone? Okay, I do believe we have an executive session. I thought there was a call for one, and then we'll adjourn and go into the workshop. Could you announce that, Mr. Briggs?
Right, there is need for executive session under RCW 4230, 110, 1I, I believe triple I, so there'd be actual litigation. We would need myself, I guess both county administrators, the board, and I think Mackenzie, Mr. Sant, and Mr. Erdman could be present. And that would be everyone.
Clerk of the board?
Clerk of the board as well, yes.
Okay. All righty, at this time, for how long? Jeff?
We'll need at least a half an hour.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Okay, at this time, we'll recess into executive session for 30 minutes. We're going to go in at 10:54, so we'll come out at 11:24.
Are we staying here, or are we going downstairs?
I don't know.
Always, thank you.
come out of executive session with no decisions being made, we're going to go underneath the same RCW for another 10 minutes, so we'll be done at 11:35. Thank you. Taking forever.
I'm sure the first. Well, time passes quickly when you enjoy what you're doing generally.
We have come out of executive session with no decisions being made. We are going to adjourn the meeting at this time. So at this time, I adjourn the meeting, and we're going to go into a closed session for contract negotiations, and then we'll be back up for the workshop.
Oh, the workshop is downstairs closed?
Okay. Okay, we've come out of closed session. We're back to the chamber for our workshops. At this time, I'll call the workshop to order and ask that we approve the workshop agenda. Motion?
I'll make the motion. So moved.
Been moved. I'll second that we approve the workshop agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And at this time, we will open it up for public comment. Public comment will only involve the two items we have on the workshop, which is county-wide planning policies or proposed property management ordinance. Is there anybody for public comment? Seeing none, then we will move on, and we will move the second workshop to number 1, proposed property management ordinance. Mr. Briggs, presented by Eric Johnson, but Mr. Briggs will be weighing in.
Sure. And good afternoon, members of the board, county administrators. And so this proposed ordinance has been in the works for quite some time. It's sort of an amalgamation of a lot of other counties' property management ordinances. As I think we point out here, we are authorized under state law, RCW 3634005, to create our own property management policy. Virtually every county in the state has already done this. And it's sort of a blank slate. You can sort of do whatever you want with your property management policy, short of gifting. You know, there are some guardrails there. And so it gives you a lot more flexibility. We saw that with the horse trailers auction.
Horse stalls.
Horse stalls, right, where we had to declare them surplus. And then I think the most important part of all that was we had to auction those. What if we didn't want to auction them? What if we had a buyer that we felt would give us a better deal than we would get at auction? Because I think at the time when this statute 3634 was originally drafted, it was intended, I think auction was the way to go. It was how you got the highest and best dollar value. Nowadays, I think maybe being patient online, using a broker and posting things online can be a more effective way of selling things. And so recognizing that, the legislature empowered counties to develop these property management ordinances. And so I drafted a version that has sort of been lingering sort of on the back burner for a while. I had floated that to Eric. He had taken a look and had some very good proposed edits that he had provided to me. And one of the things that he brought up was, what if we wanted to lease property? Would that be permissible? It certainly would be. And so we added lease language in there, which I think is still redlined. Kind of funny because the entire document really could be.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. We should have just,
The whole thing's a red line.
Yeah.
It's all brand new
It's all
code.
brand new.
This is a brand new code section, so it was red line because it was for us to keep track of what we were changing, but really, for our intents and purposes today, this is all new to the board. So feel free to look at anything and everything and tell us what you think of it and what you like, don't like. But I think the goal here from the beginning and what we're trying to achieve here is just greater flexibility, giving you more tools. So that initial tool that I described about auctioning, you can still auction here, but if you don't want to auction, you're not hamstrung and limited to only that option. You can do a negotiated sale. You can lease the property. You can do any other.
we can list it.
You can list it, and then of course there's an emergency sale provision as well. So anyway,
A lot of business dealings we do out there with is, when you get the opportunity to lease a piece of ground, you would always like the first option to buy. Is there a lease with the option to buy also in here?
I believe so, yep. I did.
All you gotta do is match the offer that is made, and then you can buy it.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that we might want to think about as well, just in kind of the question about, do we need to, in the policy that says we'll carry the contract, that would we potentially sell something on contract? Might be something for us to think about. We don't really, I don't think, specifically discuss that in here. There's other things that this is meant for you to review, to look at, to stimulate your thinking, so that as we finalize this, as you finalize this, that it's, we think about the things that we don't limit ourselves in, but we also, I think have tried to say that, this is the framework, but you're not prohibited potentially from doing other things like that as well.
The other thing I would add, I kind of snuck in, well, I wouldn't say I snuck it in here, but it's in here. And I've noticed, I think I borrowed this, virtually every other county has it. I think it might even be a requirement by statute. There's a requirement to inventory all property of the county. I know there was sort of, this came up with the Hapo Center where we had property, we didn't know who owned what. That should never happen. We should have an ongoing rolling inventory of everything we own that we update annually. It doesn't really have to fall on the county administrator. So Brian, you can thank me for that I designated the, but I mean, you could designate someone, or the board could designate someone else. I think, conceptually, it makes the most sense for it to be somebody who falls under the board, because the board is the entity with the authority to manage and care for the property of the county. So naturally, it would be someone under that entity, so.
Going along with Eric's thought there, we also have that too, where you carry your note, and they make payments to you with interest, and if they fail to complete the contract, you get the property back. And so I would like to see that in the contract also. So we have a week to look this over, or are you planning on having?
I think, we can come back and just, if you have feedback, if you have changes, and then, get those to Mr. Briggs, and he'll incorporate those in, and when, I don't know if it's a week or 2 weeks, we'll get it on the agenda for adoption.
Appreciate you getting this put together. Been waiting a while for this, and I'm glad we got it in place. Also, along that line, what department are we looking at about compiling this list of properties that Franklin County owns? Is that the treasurer?
Everyone who owns property. So it's orchestrated, centrally by the county administrator, but they're reaching out. Anyone who owns property should be documenting that and then reporting back to the county administrator. So that's how it's structured, is all the departments, offices, you document your property and let us know. It's also important too, for insurance purposes, because we're supposed to report that to the risk pool.
Yep.
So that it's insured.
And along those same lines, owned property, but what about leased property also? Could we have a list of the leased property, like planning and building? We're leasing that from the port, these properties, because I'd like to get an idea of what we're expending for leases, as compared to maybe putting together an administrative building where we could put everybody in it and get away from the lease.
Okay.
Yeah, the inventory doesn't speak. It's section 240050. It does not speak to leases, but having
Well, I think it.
I think it does.
Yeah. It says owned
Oh,
or
owned or
leased.
leased by the county. Yeah, it
Oh,
does.
okay.
Kind of ambiguous whether we're the lessor or lessee, meaning so
We
it's,
own it, but lease it.
right. So you kind of read that both ways, so
Right.
maybe we
It's
want to,
leased by rather than leased to.
right, we could broaden that to be either. I mean,
Exactly.
really.
And listed separately so that you know the difference thereof.
Because I think when I had, this might have been something I borrowed from Clark County, but I think when I was doing that, when I was thinking about it, I had thought that it meant that we were leasing it, and we owned it, we were leasing it to someone else, but maybe, or actually, this might have been language I added in just recently when we were putting in,
Talking about leasing.
yeah.
All right, so is there any other questions, commissioners?
I just appreciate the effort that's gone into this. It's a little bit more complete than it was one of our first couple of drafts, and there's several things in here. I do appreciate Commissioner Didier's thought of carrying the contract. That might be something that's helpful to have a portion in here that talks about carrying the contract. And other than that, notice something small, but Scribner's thing that we can adjust.
All right, if that's, if we're good on that topic, I'd like to get Mr. McCart up here. We will continue with countywide planning policies presented by Wes McCart. Welcome, Wes.
Thank you. So commissioners and administrators, I just want to tee off this conversation. It's going to be a little bit of a work in process with the cities. For those that may not know, the countywide, we're in the process now of getting started on the update. The update cycle is supposed to be done by June of next year. We have received a little bit of money, half of the money to start that process for the update. In July, we'll be eligible for the other half of the money. In addition to that, there is the law that passed last year. That was House Bill, I think it was House Bill 1181, that dealt with changing the Growth Management Act as it relates to greenhouse gas reductions, transportation reductions. Franklin County fits under that purview. There is a grant that we are eligible for on doing that. And the reason I'm mentioning that as a very important item is because when we're updating our countywide planning policies, each of the cities and the county will be having to obligate what their proportion of the reduction is going to be for our contribution to the greenhouse gases. So one of the things that you're supposed to do with the cities and towns and the county working together, countywide planning policies are meant to be overarching policies that kind of guide how we are working together so that we can have consistent planning. What I'm looking for from to start off today is kind of what are your concerns? And I know I didn't provide the countywide planning policies we currently have for you, and I kind of did that on purpose because I wanted you to be able to tell me what it is that you see as issues with our obligations with the cities and towns that we need to be working closer together with. I've talked to a couple of you have mentioned, actually before I was even hired, a couple of things to me. I know annexations is one of those huge topics that is always a concern. It wasn't, I don't see the annexations addressed very detailed in the current countywide planning policies, so that's something we're looking to add. I'm also concerned when we annex in how, in this case, the example that was given to me is the city of Pasco has annexed in territory in the urban growth area. However, they didn't annex in a complete block, and they've left us a couple of little circles that are islands. These are things that really shouldn't be happening during annexation. So how do we better write the policies? The other thought that I have is, as we're talking with the cities, we need to be developing an interlocal agreement. I've seen this across the state where the Growth Management Act talks about having these policies so you have consistent plans. but there's absolutely no teeth to the policies or even follow through with the policies. And that's something that I think we need to work on here is getting an interlocal with all the different entities to try and make sure that when proposals are coming forward, whether that's a change in your comprehensive plan or development regulations, whether it's in the county or the city, that we're sharing that information with each other so that we're moving together as a unit. So that's kind of my preliminary thoughts. I wanted some of your input on population threshold. Do you have any ideas there? Primarily, like I said, it was mentioned to me about the annexations on economic development. Revenue sharing, that's an option we can talk about. Do you want the administrator to be involved in these discussions? Do one of you commissioners want to be involved in these discussions as we move forward? At some point, you're going to need to be involved, at least in approving this. So I need a little bit of guidance from the board as a whole as to what you would like to see us negotiate and talk about as we move forward. Our first meeting is in March 11th that we've got scheduled. That was scheduled before I came on board. So I'm just trying to get an idea of what is your opinion on what's missing or what's not working that we can help write policies and possibly an interlocal with the cities to make it work better in the future.
Commissioners.
First off, I want to say that it's not fair that somebody can recite House bills from last year and recite the contents of them. That's not fair. Because we had, I think, 2,200 bills last year? Something
I'm
like
sorry, I
that.
don't know that number off the top of my head.
There's lots.
Lots.
Lots and lots, and we're approaching 2,000 now. But anyway, thank you. I'm excited to have you here. I'll just kind of talk in a little bit of generality about development. I think one of the most critical things that we can do as a county is work well with the other jurisdictions within our county, i.e. primarily the city of Pasco. Working well with them, I think, is very, very important to our community. We've been working on that with the HAPO Center, but in development as a whole, I think that we need to work diligently with them. Another number of just components. Right now, in our policies that we have a goal of housing units per year that we bring in and so forth. And with the trajectory or what we have been doing, we are nowhere near meeting those goals. And so there's either two things: either the goals are unrealistic, or we have regulations that's not allowing that. And I would argue that it's the latter. I think that we need to be very deliberate about this process and not put unnecessary regulation on there. One of the things is, for example, I don't believe that we have licensing authority, or if we do, it's very limited as far as licensing people and regulating that component of it. And so if it's something that we aren't even authorized to do, then we should not have that as a part of it. I think it doesn't need to be complicated. I don't think developers, and this is me speaking as a developer's not against regulation, but the most expensive thing that you can do, whether it's housing or commercial or whatever whatever it is, the most expensive thing that happens in development is the unknown. So we need to have a very laid out process so that it is not complicated. It needs to be from the experienced developer to the homeowner that would like a permit for a fence. It needs to be an understandable, laid out, step-by-step process where everybody feels like they're being treated equally. And so I could go on for a while, but I won't do that. Working together with our neighboring jurisdictions and having a deliberative process, and if I can be helpful anywhere through that, I would be happy to be.
Okay. Commissioner, thanks for the comments. Something I did not mention, in addition to the greenhouse gas reductions and the population threshold, there is a requirement also that we deal with allocation of affordable housing. And just to get clarification, you're talking about all housing needs, not just the affordable. So you would like to see
Across the
us
board.
address all of them?
Across the
Okay.
board. We have, I don't remember the exact number, but I remember sitting down and looking at it, and we weren't even touching it. We weren't even halfway close to that goal. And so just think that we need to have we kind of need to go from the top to the bottom, end to end, and readdress all of the components. And when somebody asks a question and we don't even know how to answer the question, maybe we shouldn't regulate something that we don't know how to answer that question.
The other thing I'll mention that I think we need to be looking at, I want to make you aware of, is a citing of essential public facilities. In particular, there are certain facilities, mental health, it comes to mind. There are lots of different types of facilities under that category. Some get very complicated on where they would be sited, so they have appropriate infrastructure. Some of that's law enforcement, some of that's actual, pipes and waters and roads, but some of it's more service-oriented than it's that. And, one of the discussions I want to have in the countywide planning policies is how, if we haven't got those done in conjunction with the cities to figure out where they should go, we should be doing that up front rather than waiting for a proposal to come later. So that's something I want to make you aware of also. So
If I could offer a couple comments.
Yeah.
I have some insight on this issue, particularly as it pertains to growth in the unincorporated urban growth boundaries. I know there's a couple of, they call them donut holes in the city of Pasco, these urban growth areas that are, they're designated as part of the UGA, but the city does not want to annex them. And the reason for that, and it's nothing confidential, I used to work for the city, but it's stuff they've disclosed in open meetings. They're not shy about it. It's because they lack those services. They lack either, they typically have water, so they have city water, but they don't have sewer. They don't have roads to city standards, and they don't have sidewalks. So from the city's perspective, they don't want to annex these, what they call them like substandard areas, and then they would have to incur the cost to bring them up to their standard. So I think, and I don't know what the city has offered in terms of a proposed agreement, but I'm guessing it would be some sort of agreement where they would potentially say, we're going to offer, because the city could do this, they could offer to extend, and they're kind of unilaterally doing this right now with individual property owners, saying we'll extend water and sewer into our UGA if you build the city standards, right? Well, we could reach an agreement with the city saying we'll just have our own standards become these urban standards within the UGA. In exchange for doing so, city, you need to agree to extend your services into the urban growth boundary. Now, if they do that, I think the benefit to the development community, it would be more costly to the development community, so they may not want that. But I think the benefit to them, why they may want it, is that it gives them more certainty, because right now the system I believe they're operating under is they do these utility extension agreements, which are one-off agreements with the city, and it's complicated, it's cumbersome, and it certainly slows things down with a lot of red tape. And you run in these scenarios where, developers say, the heck with it, I'm just going to punch a well, and then the city says, the heck with it, I'm not going to annex it. So you've got this struggle going on. So I think it would benefit the parties to, and that's, not what we want. We want an urban growth area that eventually is going to become part of the city and be part of a uniform pattern of development. So, I think, overall, it would benefit all the parties to reach an agreement, as Wes is suggesting, that benefits all the parties. So I think it would,
Well, let me ask you this. If it's a donut hole, who's collecting the property taxes off that? The county?
yeah, it would still be in the county.
Yeah. So if it was annexed, then the city would get it.
Right.
Well, wouldn't that be enough?
So property tax, just to remind you, every city resident pays the county general fund current expense property tax.
Okay.
The unincorporated area just pays the road fund property tax. So if an annexation occurs, the road fund loses the property tax.
Gotcha.
However, keep this in mind, we collect 101% of what we collected last year. You can collect up to 101%.
Right.
You have an annexation of the two islands. We still collect 101% of what we collected last year. It's just fewer residents now pay that 101%.
Gotcha.
So you could deduct that when a big annexation, and some jurisdictions have, particularly when there's a really large annexation that has occurred, you then sometimes see the county deduct that kind of amount and don't just assume that the road fund's going to pick up the extra, but, yep.
I have some people I know that live in some of these areas, and they're very upset that the city is wanting them to pay for the sidewalks and the sewer, and he goes, well, they're asking, why do we do all the improvements? And then he's got 3 lots he could sell. He's losing $100,000 in doing it.
Right.
And
Right.
and so he's stuck in limbo. He doesn't want to do anything because it's going to cost him so much to do it.
Well, so part of the Growth Management Act requirement is consistency, and I think that's what you're alerting to is that we have different development standards. That's something we have to do, and typically in a rural environment, you don't want to put sidewalks in. When you get into an urban environment, you have those sidewalks. A lot of cities require them, some cities don't, some do, but in reality, it's the countywide planning policies are there to help guide that so we can maintain that consistency. On the other issue of annexation, on the economic side, it's not so much the property tax that is the issue. It's the other revenues that are associated with the economic development, usually of businesses. Businesses don't generally pay a B&O tax to the county. That's not allowed. Even though there's some proposals in the legislature to consider that. But what you do is you end up with a huge sales tax impact. When that business generates some kind of a sales tax, now instead of the larger portion of that sales tax going to the county and a small portion being split, or a smaller portion being split between the cities proportionally, what happens is that larger portion goes to the city and the county receives that smaller portion. So you see your sales tax revenue go away, and usually businesses tend to be revenue generators, whereas residences tend to be more costly than what your tax revenue actually brings in. So there needs to be a balance here, and the countywide planning policies also do not specifically address port districts. It is meant to be a document between the cities and the county. However, where we have a very large port district here that has their hand in economic development and a lot of property management, that is something we also have to consider. And one more thing I'll mention, master plan resorts. We have a potential for a master plan resort coming into the area. One of the concerns that I have is that that population allocation also needs to be taken care of there. So there's another concern with the policy on policies moving forward to make sure we're distributing the population correctly. But I think I've heard loud and clear the economic is a piece. So I'm looking for a little bit more guidance on what you might do, and I don't necessarily need an answer today. We've got some time. Again, our first meeting is the 11th, but as a board, if you're thinking about this and can collectively give us some sideboards on what you would like to see negotiating. I mean, if they annex in a very large, portion of the county that's industrial or business-oriented, and that loss of revenue is going to take place, is there some kind of an agreement you're looking forward for that revenue sharing in the future so we can all prosper together as a group versus having an internal food fight in the county over the city versus, the county? Well, we can all move together, port, cities, county, if we all work together. If we get into a food fight, nobody wins, and the citizens will lose. So, it's, again, I'm looking for your input and whether or not you would like the administrator involved in these meetings, or one of you want to be involved in these meetings to help guide this process. Because it's a fairly important process, and if we can get an interlocal done, especially with the city of Pasco, I think it'll benefit both Pasco and the county and the residents as a whole. So,
Agreed. And as far as the county goes, all I hear is from my constituents out there in the blocks, and they said that what I'm hearing is overregulated and over-permitted. I don't think, talking to other counties, we don't have to have all of this regulation and permitting that we have in our county. What have you seen, Wes, as far as, are we there? Are we over-regulating and over-permitting our residents?
So I've only been here, 6 days now? So, but I have had a chance to look at several things and have a few projects brought in front of me. I think there are a lot of improvements that we can make in our development regulations. One of the things that comes to mind, I need to talk have an extensive conversation with Jeff on, is even the appeals process. Currently, our code 17 requires that when you can actually appeal a recommendation from the Planning Commission. That is not a final decision. Why are we appealing something that's not a final decision? Having a hearing examiner. There are a lot of processes that I can be improved. I think there's a lot of processes that we can do, but a lot of that's going to take making sure we get the foundation right, and that's why, the public participation policy, which I hope to bring to you fairly soon. I've looked at it. There's some changes to be made. This countywide planning policies and how we're working together. If we lay those foundations and get our comprehensive plan really be in the guidance document, when we get to development regulations, we can start looking at actually making those things on the ground that are going to show that positive impact to everybody and still work in the urban growth area to not end up having the city go, we can't do this, and the residents going, well, we can't afford to do this, and let's come up with a solution ahead of time rather than after the fact. We can't fix what's happened in the past, but we can definitely fix it moving forward, and that's what we want to do.
Thank you. Commissioner Mullen?
No, that's no questions.
One thing, and you and I visited about this already, is a electronic ability to interact with permitting and the planning staff, and I think that we talked about that, but it's potential that we already have the tool that we need. We may have to add a module or two to it to make it operate the way that it needs to operate, but really excited to have you here, Wes, and please reach out as far as whether a commissioner or the administrator should be a part of that meeting. I'd leave that to your discretion of which way that you think is the best and most effective route to that. And looking forward to these next steps. Thank you.
Okay, that's probably good point, Commissioner. That's another point that I'll bring up with, in particular, the city of Pasco, what they're using for permitting their processes, because again, I think if we can work together, we can probably save each other some time and money and headaches.
To efficientize the process locally, and just certainly makes a lot of sense. And yeah, looking forward to working with you on this.
One last thing is, along that same line is inspections. L&I has gone to virtual inspections for electrical. Are we going to be looking at possibly doing that because that would save on travel time? It costs employee to go out there and look for an inspection. Could we possibly look at that as saving money?
So to give you an honest answer, Commissioner, we can absolutely look at that, but I don't want to put the cart before the horse, and I think there's a lot of horses to put out in front of that cart right now.
Yeah, I hear you. So thank you. Thank you for taking on this task, Wes.
Thank you.
All right, so we have concluded the second workshop, and at this time, we have a public comment period. Is there anybody for public comment? There we go.
Good morning, Commissioners. Peter Harpster. I want to start out by mentioning, since we talked about the city of Pasco a lot, that everything I'm going to say is not in my role as a council member, just in my own personal capacity. First, to what Commissioner Bauman said, I can provide some clarity on the comp plan and the units it calls for. It's 2,305 housing units by 2038, which would be an average of 115 a year. Currently, since the comp plan was adopted in 2018, we're averaging around 30 a year, so a pretty significant shortfall. And I agree with everything Mr. Briggs said regarding looking into having a hearing examiner, or even the sort of wackiness of being able to appeal a recommendation from the Planning Commission, not a decision that you all would make, is just weird and something that I don't think is seen in many other jurisdictions. And then also with that, folks, anybody not even impacted by a project can appeal a project through the SEPA appeal process, which serves to only really delay a project a number of months, when really I think the best process would be once the elected board or hearing examiner makes a decision, then at that point anybody who has issues with the project for whatever reason can file their appeal, instead of at the SEPA level or at the Planning Commission level, which again is just a recommendation. I really like what Mr. McCart said, in working together with the city. Previous projects that we have done in the county, we used to receive pretty snarky comments from folks at the city and the planning department regarding wanting us and the county to work with them. But Mr. Bratton would try to, and then the city wouldn't kind of come to the table with us. So I think we've got a really unique opportunity in that we've had almost 100% turnover in the county planning and building department, as well as CED at City of Pasco, and specifically their planning department. And so the city's still looking for a CED director, but the new deputy there, I think, would very much be interested in getting together and discussing some of these proposed changes, and not even changes, but just, hey, can we work together better on these projects? And there's a number of projects that are either just inside or just outside the UGA that impacts both entities. And one other thing I want to bring up is there was a group of us probably a year to year and a half ago that met and discussed some of these issues, if you will, with planning and building and what we could do. And at the time, we had there was maybe 20 of us that had a long list of ideas, and it never really went anywhere. Staff was working on Title 17 changes at that time, and but that might be another one to look into. I'd be happy to kind of re-engage with that group if that's something that Mr. McCart wants to do. One other, do I need to stop?
No, that's okay.
Okay. One other item I wanted to mention is we've got a great planning commission. A lot of them have been serving on there a long time, but 6 or 7 times in the last 18 months, they've not been able to get a quorum for a meeting. And so what ends up happening pretty frequently, it's probably 50-50 whether it doesn't happen or not, the meeting gets delayed because we're not able to get 4 planning commission members here. We do have, I believe, 3 new ones, one of whom replaced me, and then 2 others. And but it would be worth, I think, looking into, hey, who really wants to be on here, and can show up once a month and serve the county. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was, talking about affordable housing. There's two segments of the housing market that are in the highest need right now. One is at the very entry level, and you're not really going to find any of those in the county. Those are going to be more in the city in a medium density to high density area. And then on the complete other end of the spectrum, a group of folks looking to buy half-acre to 1 acre lots to build upwards of 1 million plus size homes on is also a big segment of the market that there's a huge need for. And typically the developments we're doing in the county that have those size lots sell out within a month. And so it's just important not to forget that segment either of folks who are usually near retirement. And if you look on, if you track the housing around here, typically when you get a home between $350,000 to $400,000 that's new construction, it sells very quickly in just a couple of days. Same with $1.5 million and up; those are selling just as fast. So there's definitely a need for both. Appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
Michelle Andrews, this is what I think most taxpayers want to see. This is what they want to have happen, is the efficiency. And we're going through some growth pains, but I think these are really good growth pains. This is what we want to see, is that cooperation. And we kind of had it before, and then things kind of changed throughout elections and a number of things, but this is really what we want to see. We want to see the PUD and the port and everybody working together, and I hope to see more of it. We're on the right track, and I'm very thankful for Wes McCart. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? So at this time, I will close the workshop and adjourn the meeting.